Today, we're going to look at how to set up a web hosting site on a Google Cloud virtual machine using Plesk. Let's get started. To set up a web hosting site on a Google Cloud virtual machine using Plesk, you'll need to follow a few simple steps. We'll cover everything you need to know from creating a virtual machine on Google Cloud to installing and configuring Plesk for web hosting. We'll also provide tips and best practices to help you set up a reliable and secure hosting environment. So let's get started. First, let's create a virtual machine on Google Cloud. To create a virtual machine, you must have a Google account and then log into the Google Cloud console. From the main page, navigate to the Compute Engine section and click on VM Instances. Click on Create VM Instance and select the machine type. You can choose from a variety of machine types, depending on your needs. However, for most small to medium websites, the F1 micro instance should suffice. Next, you'll need to select a boot disk image. You can choose from various images, but we recommend using either an Ubuntu or CentOS image, as these are compatible with Plesk. Once you've selected your boot disk, you'll need to configure your networking settings. Make sure to assign your VM a public IP address. This will allow you to access your VM from the internet. You'll also need to add firewall rules to allow traffic to your VM. You can do this by clicking on the Edit button in the Firewall tab. Allow HTTP and HTTPS traffic by checking the corresponding boxes. Finally, click on Create to create your virtual machine. Once your virtual machine has been created, you can access it via SSH. To do this, navigate back to the VM Instances page and select your VM. Then click on the SSH button to open a browser-based SSH terminal. Alternatively, you can connect to your VM using a tool like PuTTY if you're on Windows. Once you've connected to your VM, you'll need to set up a static IP address. This will ensure that your website is accessible even if the IP address of your VM changes. To set up a static IP address, navigate to VPC network greater than external IP addresses and reserve a static IP address. Once you've reserved your static IP address, you'll need to update your VM's network interface to use it. You can do this by running the following command: sudo ipadder change your _static _address dev your _address dev your _interface. Next, you'll need to update your system to ensure you have the latest packages installed. You can do this by running the following command: sudo apt update and sudo apt upgrade. Why? Now that your system is up to date, you can proceed to install Plesk. To install Plesk, run the following command: sudo wet http://autoinstall plesk.com/1-click-installer and sudo clad +x one-click installer and sudo let one-click installer. Follow the instructions on the screen to complete the installation process. This may take a few minutes, so please be patient. Once the installation is complete, you can access Plesk by opening your web browser and navigating to http://your-server IP 8880. Log in using the root credentials that you used during the installation process. Now that you've installed and logged into Plesk, it's time to configure it for web hosting. The first thing you'll want to do is create a hosting plan. This will define the resources that your website will have access to, such as disk space and bandwidth. To create a hosting plan, navigate to the Hosting section and click on Hosting Plans. Click on the Create Hosting Plan button and select the type of plan you want to create. Plesk offers a variety of plans to choose from, so you should be able to find one that meets your needs. Once you've created your hosting plan, you'll need to set up a domain or subdomain. This is the name that people will use to access your website. To set up a domain or subdomain, navigate to the Domains section and click on Add a Domain. Enter your domain name or subdomain name and click on OK. Now that you've created a hosting plan and set up a domain, you can set up your website. You can upload your website files using an FTP client like FileZilla, or you can use the built-in file manager in Plesk to upload your website files using FileZilla. Connect to your server and upload your files to the var/whosts/htp-docs/your_domain_name folder. If you're using a subdomain, make sure to replace your _domain_name with the subdomain name. Next, you'll want to set up any databases that your website might need. To create a database, navigate to the Databases section and click on ADA Database. Enter a name for your database and click on OK. You'll also need to create a database user and grant them the necessary permissions. Once you've created your database and user, you can connect your website to it. The next step is to configure your domain's DNS settings. You'll need to update your domain SDNS records to point to your Google Cloud VMs IP address. This will ensure that people can access your website by using your domain name. Most domain registrars will have a section in their control panel where you can manage your domain SDNS settings. Look for the section that says something like DNS Management or DNS Settings. Once you find it, click on it to open the DNS settings page. Now you'll need to add a new DNS record for your domain. Depending on your domain registrar, this may be done by clicking on a button or link labeled Add Record. When the new record window opens, select the type of record you want to add. In this case, you'll want to add an A record for your domain and a CNAME record for any subdomains. An A record is used to map a domain name to an IP address. A CNAME record is used to map a subdomain to another domain name. Once you've added your DNS records, you'll need to save them. This usually involves clicking on a button or link labeled Save or Save Changes. And that's it. Your domain is now pointing to your Google Cloud VM. Next, let's set up an SSL certificate for your website. An SSL certificate is essential for encrypting the connection between your website and your visitors' browsers. Plesk makes it easy to set up an SSL certificate for your website. Simply navigate to the SSL TLS Certificates section and click on Add Certificate. Follow the instructions on the screen to complete the process. Now that your website is set up and secured, it's time to configure your server. There are a few important things you'll want to do to ensure that your server is running smoothly. First, you'll want to configure a firewall on your server. A firewall will help protect your server from unauthorized access and attacks. You can use the built-in firewall on Ubuntu or CentOS to configure your firewall rules. Next, you'll want to change the SSH port. This will help prevent brute force attacks on your server. To change your SSH port, open the SSH configuration file and change the port directive to a custom port number. Finally, you'll want to disable root login via SSH. Instead, use a non-root user with sudo privileges. That's it. You've now successfully set up a web hosting site on a Google Cloud virtual machine using Plesk. Congratulations. Finally, let's discuss some tips for maintaining your server. Regular backups are essential for ensuring that you can recover your data if something goes wrong. You can set up regular backups in Plesk by navigating to the Backups section and selecting the backup type. You can also choose to store your backups on a remote server for added security. To monitor your server's performance, you can use the built-in monitoring tools in Plesk, or you can use Google Cloud Monitoring. You'll also want to keep your server software up to date to ensure that you have the latest security patches and features. You can find the transcript of this video on our blog site, www.aceintelmedia.blogspot.com. Thanks for watching. I hope this tutorial has made setting up your own web hosting site easier than ever. With a little time and effort, you can have your site up and running in no time.